Hey friends! In this video I'm going to be testing out a bunch of back to school supplies specifically to be used for hand lettering. I asked on my Instagram the other day if you guys were like me and you like to purchase back to school supplies even though you might not be in school, and so many of you agreed, and so I thought it would be fun to grab some things that were on sale and try them out and see how they work for hand lettering. So I took advantage of some of the sales and tried to grab some things and make this video with only supplies that I got for this like back to school haul, and not use like my fancy papers or anything like that. So let's just get right into the demonstration. So the first ones that I have here are the Crayola Super Tips, and if you've watched my channel before, you might know that I have used these before for hand lettering, but I do not think I could do a back to school supplies lettering haul without including them because they are some hidden gems if you haven't found them yet. They come in such pretty colors and I love how inexpensive they are. As you can see, the tip is a little bit smaller than the larger Crayola markers, but you can still get some really nice thick and thin strokes using these just by pushing a little bit harder and sometimes rotating your pen. I also got these unruled index cards so that I could have something to write on for this video. So I'm not going to be using any special paper. You will notice probably a little bit of a difference if you've seen my other videos, and you might get a taste of why I say that you should choose your paper carefully. So here I'm just going to give you an example of using these for hand lettering. And like I said, you can get some thick and thin strokes using these. You do have to rotate your pen a bit because they don't really bounce back in their shape. So you might just find that you need to turn it every couple of letters or strokes, but they are so pretty and such pretty colors. And there's just a huge variety for such an inexpensive pack. So if you are going to try this with back to school supplies, I would definitely recommend grabbing some of these if you see them. I can't remember the exact price, but I think they were around $6 for this whole pack. So that's a great deal. And since I am using the supplies that I have here, I am just going to do a little bit of blending, but since I'm not going to grab a blending palette, I just took the plastic that was around my note cards and stuck a few back in there to get a hard surface, and I'm just going to be using that for my blending palette and showing you a little example of what blending with Crayola Super Tips can look like. So this is a really subtle blended look because I'm just using two really similar colors, so it's not a lot of contrast, but you can kind of see how it starts out more purple at the top and then fades to the bottom. But with this pack you could definitely try a lot of different color combinations. And here I'm just going to swatch these out for you so that you're able to kind of see what they look like and get an idea of what comes in this pack. I did find with writing these that it's a little bit harder to get a calligraphy or brush lettering style with these pens if you're writing really small, because it's just those transitions from your thick and thin strokes just don't happen as easily when your curve is really small and you're going to the next letter like really closely. So I do think it's nicer to be able to have a little bit more surface area to write on than a note card, but this was a really fun challenge to try. So I thought that I would still share it with you, even though some of these aren't like perfect brush lettering. They're still definitely really fun. And if you want more like tutorials or how exactly to use these for brush lettering, I believe that I have a video already about using the Crayola Super Tip, so I will try to find that and link that below if I do. Otherwise, if you have specific questions, just leave them in the description box below. So here I'm just finishing up the swatches and I will show you the final couple of note cards. I love the colors. There's so many bright ones, but there's so many pastels and pretty ones that I think are really nice for using if you like to use them kind of like a highlighter as well. So I get a lot of use out of these for sure. And the next thing that I'm going to show you is the Papermate flares. These are in a size medium and I have used these before. I'm not sure about the specific size that I've bought before, but I have tested out Papermate flares. But this pack of colors looked really fun, and when I use them, I usually use them in just my regular writing or just regular monoline writing. But today I thought that I would try them out for faux calligraphy and see how they work. In all of my time using these pens, I'm sure that I have tried using them for faux calligraphy, but since it's not something that I do often, I wanted to share here and see what you guys thought, and if you thought these were something that would be worthwhile to buy for faux calligraphy. These are really a like sharper tip kind of for a felt tip pen. I know that a lot of felt tip pens can go flat pretty easily, and so that can make it a challenge to do faux calligraphy, but I have found over time that these really don't go flat very easily. So that might be something that makes them a good candidate for faux calligraphy. I also like the way that they look just with monoline lettering, and also that block style that I showed when I wrote the Papermate Flare. So you can probably get a lot of different uses out of these if you are looking to do this style of hand lettering. And of course, like I already said, the pretty colors, I just love them. So the next up are another Crayola product, and these are these really small Crayola markers. I wasn't sure if these would give me thicker thin lines or not. I'm sure that I've used them when I was a kid, but I haven't ever tried them for hand lettering. So I went ahead and grabbed some, and I just want to point out that I think they're called the Crayola Fine Lines, and these are not like a fine liner. So if you are like a bullet journaler or somebody who uses fine liner pens, that's not what those are. I'm not trying to say that they're fine liners. That's just what it said on the box. So I think they're called Crayola Fine Lines, and I didn't really try to do a lot of brush lettering with a thick and thin stroke. You probably could have gotten a slightly different stroke if you would have pushed really hard, but I imagine you probably would have broken the markers pretty quickly or flattened them out. So I decided to just try using them for monoline and block lettering, and then a little bit of faux calligraphy. So I actually surprised myself with how much I liked these for faux calligraphy. I think because the end is a little bit pointed, and then if you write with the side of it a little bit, you get a slightly thicker stroke. I think it just made it a little bit easier to fill in my downstrokes with a faux calligraphy style. I think because sometimes when you use a bullet tipped pen and you can't do this, or a bullet tip marker, you have to kind of draw in that stroke and then go back and fill it in, and it can be kind of hard to do that seamlessly without leaving kind of like a little dot in the bottom where you can kind of see where you drew the faux calligraphy. So I decided to try it again with another marker just to see if it was a fluke how much I liked it the first time. But I really think that you guys are going to see me try these out a little bit more. I always struggle with writing the word faux in faux calligraphy, so I'm not really sure why I chose that word to test out for you here, but again, I think I'm going to try these out a few more times. I also did forget to see if they blended at all. I'm not sure that they would be great for blending just because they are such a thin tip, but we will see. If you're curious about this, definitely find me on Instagram at How to Hand Letter and watch for my stories, because that's probably where I'll share it first. So next I have these Crayola broad tip markers, and I bought this pack because I've used these before on my channel, and every time I use a color that's from this pack, or it seems like every time, I get questions about which colors these are. So when I saw these in the back to school supplies, I honestly think they were either 50 cents or 99 cents. I thought that I would pick these up so you could get an example of what the colors look like and a little bit of Crayola broad tip hand lettering. So I believe they were called the Bright and Bold pack, and I'm sure you can get them in some of the larger sets as well, but this pack specifically I just think has some really, really pretty colors, and I really like using these for lettering. Similar to the Crayola Super Tips, you can get a thick downstroke and a thin upstroke just by adding a little bit of pressure, but also similar is that you typically have to rotate your pen or your marker like you will see me doing, just because that tip will kind of bend and then you won't be able to get a really clean transition back into your upstroke if you don't kind of give it a little rotation. So that's just a trick to help you get those better looking transitions from your thick to your thin strokes. Another thing I noticed with these is it was pretty hard to write really small with them, like on this little note card, so I would definitely recommend trying a bigger piece of paper. I should have just got a notebook, but oh well. So if you have any specific questions, you can leave them in the comments below, or I do know that I have some more Crayola videos, so I'll link a playlist or a couple of Crayola broad tip marker videos below if you want to see some specific demonstrations for hand lettering and some more specific maybe tips or tutorials. I will link some of those videos in the description box below for you. And here in a couple of seconds you can see all the swatches, and then kind of keep in mind which colors you might combine if you would like to do some blending. These would probably have some really complementary colors to do a lot of different blending. So I will give you a little example of some blending using these. I'm just using that same method of using the plastic that came around those note cards, and then I'm using two kind of complementary colors. Nothing that is too bright and bold, but you could definitely try that if you prefer that style. And then I'm just going to show you what these two colors looked like right there so that you can see which ones I use and blended together. The next things that I picked up were some watercolors to try out some watercolor lettering. And I got a few different packs, and after I got these two, I realized that I think this 8-pack is just part of what's in this 24-pack. So I think that the section on the right and then the 8-pack are the exact same colors, but I will let you know if I find any differences. And then on another trip to the store, I found these glitter watercolors, so I decided to try them as well. Can't remember if they were in the back to school section or if they were in the kids art supply section, so definitely check both if you're looking for these. And then I also picked up this pack of paintbrushes because I did not really trust the paintbrush that came in the pack of Crayola watercolors. As you can see, it's kind of fanned out already. However, when I opened this smaller pack, that one was not fanned out, so I decided to do my testing to begin with that one. These say that they're the same size watercolor brush, but they obviously look really different, so I'm not really sure what the differences are. These are just a kid's pack of Crayola watercolors, so I really wasn't expecting too much out of them. But I will show you what that yellow one looks like here. I did not have high hopes for these watercolors, in all honesty. If I've used them before, it's maybe like the first time that I ever tried lettering with watercolors. I know that I did buy a really inexpensive set one time just to test it out, but it's not something that I really recall or kind of kept track of how it worked, or if I did, it was probably like the first time I ever did watercolor lettering, so I probably didn't have a lot of opinions about it, but I actually had a lot of fun with these, and I think these are also going to be something that you see me use again. I'm definitely not trying to say that these are super high quality or professional watercolors at all, but for testing out back to school supplies, I thought that they were really fun, and I thought that they had some really bright colors. I even tried to do a little bit of multicolored or blending with these watercolors, which isn't something that I do often, so part of the reason why it's probably not as perfect as some things you see is because I just don't really do this very often, but I was really surprised at how the colors bled through. And then I even tried this technique of doing the water first and then adding in the color, the pigment afterwards. And this actually turned out pretty well, considering when I use my lights for filming, it's really hard to see the water. So a lot of it, again, is probably user error. But as far as the watercolors go, I was kind of impressed that the color actually bled through there and that it was kind of nice and bright. So I will say that some of them didn't really dry very beautifully, especially if they had a lot of water on them, but that could also just be because I'm using a note card and not actual watercolor paper. So I'm definitely not holding that too hard against them, and you will probably see me try these out on some watercolor paper to see what it looks like there. And then I'll test the other two pans out for you as well, and I did switch to those Target brand paintbrushes just so that I could see how they worked. And I should mention that one thing I noticed with the first paintbrush that I was using is that I did have a little bit better luck when I was trying to hold it a little bit more upright. I don't know if it just doesn't really give a good downstroke because you're kind of at risk of the brush fanning out if you push harder. So I had better luck when I just held it really upright and then kind of adjusted my hold to my paintbrush as well. So that might be something to try if you are struggling with a paintbrush with watercolor lettering. But these were really pretty colors too, and again, you're probably going to see me try these again on watercolor paper just so I can give them like a true test and see if there's something that I like. And again, I'm not saying these are professional color watercolors, but they're definitely fun for something you can find in the kids art supply section at your local store. So definitely worth trying out if you are just wanting to see if you would be interested or like watercolor hand lettering. And I just added a little bit of gray at the bottom because I didn't swatch that out with my alphabet. And then the next one, I'm just going to do some swatches so that you can see what they look like on this cardstock. I do just kind of add a drop of water into my watercolors just so that it kind of gets them ready and helps me be able to pick up some color easier. If you are wondering why I kind of went through first and just put drops of water in each of them, that's just because I knew I was going to be using each of them, and it just makes it go a little bit quicker for me. So the next ones that I'm going to try are those watercolors with glitter in them, and I just thought they looked too fun not to try. I will say that these did not really show the glitter all that much. At the end, I will show a still picture so you can kind of see a true representation of how much glitter you can see, but if you look, those watercolors look really glittery in the pan. And I think that maybe the glitter is kind of thick or something, so it doesn't pick up much. They're still really fun though. They just aren't shimmery. I would say you can just see flecks of glitter in the watercolors. They just don't have a shimmery look at all. But they are still really fun to try, and again, with the kind of more upright hold of my watercolor brush, I was able to get some thick and thin strokes. Another thing that I should mention is that if you use note cards like I am, I would recommend maybe grabbing some washi tape or some tape that you can remove and taping the paper down to your desk or whatever you're writing on, because with all the water on these thin little note cards, they did ripple a lot, and I found the water kind of dripping and having some issues. So I would definitely try that. And that is actually what I did for this swatch that I'm showing you, just so that I could show you kind of the glitter there. You can see how those dried onto that cardstock. So I'm curious to try these with some watercolor paper. So that is it for today. Let me know if you have any of these back to school supplies or if you are trying any of them for hand lettering. And let me know which one is your favorite. Thank you again so much for watching and subscribing, and if you are not following me on Instagram already, you can find me at How to Hand Letter. I will see you in my next video. Bye!